It's official. The Bryce Young experience seems to reach its destination for the Carolina Panthers after a 2-16 record as a starter, 12 career touchdowns, 13 interceptions, 173 yards per game, and 59.3% completion percentage over the course of 18 career starts. Bryce Young has officially been benched, according to the team. And at this rate, the way things were going to start this year, you could kind of feel the change was coming. And after a declaration after the game yesterday by Coach Dave Canales that Bryce was the guy, it feels weird for after sleeping on it, they decided to bench Bryce Young, but that's exactly what was done. When Coach Canales was asked about the motivation, he said he felt like he wanted to do what was best for the team. And he was berated, asking for more details about what went into it. And the media asked the proper questions. They kept asking him what went into it. He did not want to divulge any details, just kept saying that he wanted to do what was best for the team. And they made the choice to start Andy Dalton instead of Bryce Young. And there was not really any indication that Bryce Young had a chance to return as a starter down the line. They didn't say, hey, is this just for him to catch his breath? Is Bryce Young cooked in Carolina? Will Bryce Young be traded later down the line? It was just, we had to do what was best for the team. And according to some sources from some NFL insiders, they said that Bryce Young and his camp, they said that this was a surprise. He did not see this coming. And I kind of felt it, but I didn't see it coming as well this fast. And we talked about it on my previous live stream last night that it just felt like when you do this move, there's no going back. So with them not giving any indication, I'm here to presume that Bryce Young's time as a Carolina Panther is likely over, because I really just can't see any kind of universe where you bring a guy back. Like I said, when you put that toothpaste out of the tube, you can't put it back in. You do damage to a quarterback's confidence when you bench him and try to bring him back. The time to bench him was starting his career and bring him along slow, but pressure and maybe from the powers that be, he was a day one starter, even though he may or may not would have been ready for that opportunity. The only time we've really seen this work where a guy gets benched and ends up recovering is Tua Tagovailoa, but those circumstances were different because he had Brian Flores as his coach, and we already know what type of time Brian Flores was on, sending him hate text messages and telling him that he wasn't worth anything and that they should have drafted Justin Herbert, and they got rid of Brian Flores and brought in Mike McDaniel. It doesn't seem like Dave Canales is going to be that type of guy that's out of here, and Bryce Young will be staying around for them to see how that works out after the fact. So I just can't see an outcome where Bryce Young continues to get another chance as a Panther starter. But real quick, if you're watching this, you haven't subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button down below and that bell icon. It's going to make sure you get notified. I do recap and analysis of the Carolina Panthers with film breakdowns and just news and updates just like this. So make sure you are subscribed to this video. And it really helps me out in the algorithm if you would give this a like as well. Just one like, and it doesn't cost a thing. Appreciate you. It's crazy because Dave Canales was hired to be the quarterback whisperer, and he's supposed to help get the best out of Bryce Young, but we actually saw regression, not anything close to what we saw last year, which wasn't even good in itself. The regression that fast just seems to be a head scratcher. What went into this process? Because I was one of the ones on this channel where I said, hey, I'm open-minded, and I was actually defending Dave Canales on not playing Bryce Young and the starters in preseason because I said, hey, there's no data that says that it guarantees success. Let's give him a chance to see how things played out. And how things have played out after only 2 games, Bryce Young has been removed. So what was going into the evaluation in the offseason? Why is things going so bad now that you didn't see in the offseason that you felt like we were good with not having to play in preseason? Those are questions that are going to be asked about Dave Canales now. Because whether you like Bryce Young, you hate him, or you're a fan, it's clear and obvious that this guy had regressed. Some of the routine plays, just accuracy, simple mental mistakes that he was making that he wasn't making last year. It just seemed like this guy was a completely different person, and things were just happening too fast, and his brain was to the point that it was cooked. When you start taking sacks on 3rd and medium, when you're in 4-down territory, not throwing the ball away, holding it too long, that just lets you know that this guy is thinking and just not being logical out there. He's out there thinking way too much and not being a football player. But let's not get it twisted. Bryce Young really was that bad. So the benching is not a surprise. I just didn't think it would happen this soon, especially when this year was coined as a year to evaluate Bryce. We know we're not going to really compete. We're not setting expectations for this team. We're just doing that. Putting in Andy Dalton and not having any kind of soft landing, I guess, for Bryce Young to say that, hey, we're going to come back with them later, just seems like they're trying to make win now moves to compete. But that's just how it can look from the outside looking in. Whether Bryce Young was going to be good or bad this year, if he was bad, you sink. You take that first overall draft pick, you parlay that into more assets, you maybe get a vet and you move on and let Bryce compete, or just you get rid of him. If he competes and you figure out that, hey, he's kind of decent, then okay, you can maybe move forward and still build up the roster to continue to help support Bryce Young with intent that he may be that guy down the line. So it's just really confusing on the type of moves that's being made and the decisions being made. And it doesn't really help that former head media member for the Carolina Panthers, Bill Voth, puts out subliminal tweets and a scene from All or Nothing, episode 8? And that episode, if you look at the context and read between the lines, that was after that 2018 loss to the Saints where Cam Newton's shoulder was pretty much cooked. And David Tepper told the general manager that they needed to bench Cam Newton because the locker room could tell that there was a problem.
No, that's enough. That's a problem. Yeah. Okay, can we put it up? Yeah. Okay, so I agree. Let's do it. So bring some miles again.
That lets you know that maybe David Tepper had a little bit to say about this decision, whether he was right or wrong about the locker room, because we've heard mixed comments. We saw the outburst on the sideline, but we saw defense after the game and these post-game interviews by guys like Adam Thielen and stuff like that. It feels like if Tepper's involved at all, that's not a good thing, and it feels like the continuation of prior transgressions. And even the press of the day with Dave Canales, it just felt weird with the energy. Clearly, it's a little bit of a quote-unquote somber day maybe for him to make these tough decisions, but we've never seen him drink that much water in his life, and Dasani is not that good of a water for him to keep sipping from the water bottle in between questions every time he's asked a question. It almost felt like a nervous tick or like something else is going on. I don't know. I'm not really big into reading too much in between the lines of this body language type of stuff, but things just felt off. Regardless, like I said, Bryce Young was not playing up to par. We did the film breakdown last week, and we talked about him not doing the stuff that he was even good at, let alone what he was probably being coached and the fundamentals that was being worked on. So seeing the benching, it kind of is what it is. It just sucks as a Panthers fan because it's just another Panthers disaster class in handling a quarterback. And benching your number 1 overall pick, 18 games in his career at the beginning of year 2, is just another step of the misdirection of no plan that David Tepper has characterized since he's on this team. It just seems like we have no direction, no sense of encouragement or hope. We haven't had a winning season in Lord knows how long. And the common denominator, no matter who's the quarterback, no matter who's the coach, no matter who's the GM, is that man in charge upstairs, David Tepper. But regardless for the team going forward, because there's still 15 games left in this season, and Andy Dalton will now be the starter going into the Week 3 matchup against the Las Vegas Raiders. What can we expect from Andy Dalton? I know a lot of fans are feeling kind of, encouraged and excited and happy about Andy Dalton, and I am too. I guess I'm going to the game, so I was going to be rooting for a win regardless, but I think that Andy Dalton is a pro. He's been in the league for a while. We know that vaunted, 2010, 2011 draft class that he came in. He was drafted the same year as Cam Newton. That just lets you know how old and how much around the block he's been. He's been in these type of situations before. He started Chicago with Justin Fields, where Justin Fields was benched and Andy Dalton came in. And like I said, it's hard to kind of go back on those scenarios without it being cooked. And that's literally what happened. Justin Fields is now a Pittsburgh Steeler. So Andy Dalton is used to these type of situations, and he's been in that spot before. Where is he at this point in his career? I think right now, Andy Dalton's pretty much only as good as the type of weapons that you put around him. We've had a nice solid start to our offensive line in terms of just what they're doing in pass protection. And of course, our receivers are marginally better than last year, but we know there was some opportunities that Bryce Young was missing, so we'll see if Andy Dalton will be able to take advantage of those opportunities. But I have to kind of heed some warnings that Dave Canales also has some kinks that he needs to work out as an inexperienced play caller, so there's going to be some growing pains there. I do think that having a veteran quarterback under center is actually going to help cover up some of those shortcomings that Dave Canales may have as an inexperienced play caller. So, maybe pretty solid for the team going forward. Yes, this early on in this schedule is the quote-unquote soft part of the Panther schedule. It's going to get harder as things go on throughout the season, so this is going to be a fluid situation for this offense. But I think at worst, the team felt like Andy Dalton could at least run the offense to give a chance to give guys the football, like Deontay, who's in a contract year, or to give the ball to Mingo, who has a first-round draft pick rookie, Xavier Legette, breathing down his neck, and just give guys a chance to see what they can actually do. And I understand understand that. Yes, I do think that Andy Dalton will help us allow to see what some players have, but you could have done that by putting Excel on the field. Xavier Legette, he only had 19 plays yesterday. No targets, no touches. Yards after catch was a big proponent from him. Why not get him a pop pass, an end around, stuff like that? There's just needs to be some things that move and shake. Bryce Young does not need to be the only personnel move they consider making. They need to get some of these young guys involved. And so I hope Andy Dalton is able to, like I said, be as good at least as the weapons we have, and hopefully we can evaluate Dave Canales as a coach for one. We could probably evaluate our players that we have as well. But I want to temper the expectation. Let's keep it real. And I think there's something that a lot of people are ignoring or just not even thinking about because they may not have it in their mind. Andy Dalton had a pretty solid showing last year in Seattle. But this year, Andy Dalton, of course, is another year older. Let's talk about what really happened, because Andy Dalton missed a week plus of training camp because of a quad injury. So he did not practice then. Andy Dalton did not take one single preseason snap this offseason. Andy Dalton took very, very limited reps in that joint practice. Trust me, I was there because of Andy Dalton was recovering from that quad injury he had in training camp. So there could be a chance for major rust from Andy Dalton. Of course, he has that experience to lean on, but still, he has not had a ton of action this offseason in a competitive standpoint. I want to heed that warning to everybody who's think Andy Dalton is going to take us to the Super Bowl, because it could be a little bit of a gradual buildup for Andy Dalton to get ramped up and to get used to that game speed yet again, because it's been a while since he's seen the field, let alone week 3 of last year against Seattle was a long time ago. So let's just kind of take a breath and just see what Andy has before we start saying that, hey, Andy Dalton's going to come set the world on fire just because Bryce Young was that bad. Let's put some things in perspective if Andy Dalton doesn't have the best performance coming out. But regardless, I want to get you guys' thoughts down below in the comments. How do you feel about the benching of Bryce Young? How do you feel about Andy Dalton being the starter? Do you think it was too soon? Do you think they had to do it? Do you think Bryce Young has a chance to recover as a potential Panthers quarterback? Or do you think they maybe even trade him to a team that may need a quarterback like Miami, or they go to the Rams who have a reclamation project? And do you think Bryce Young ends up being the latest quarterback that leaves us and starts cooking somewhere else? I want to get all you guys' thoughts down below in the comments, but I appreciate you guys watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.